I'm going to share with you this evening. So this is the first one in like 12. I'm going to like do 12 evenings because I wanted to keep them short, partly for myself, but partly because it, thank you Helen, it's nice to know it all seems well. I wanted to keep them short because, so partly for myself, but partly because I could break it down. There were 12 chapters in the book, and I thought, well, if I just do like a quick thing on each chapter, it suited my logical brain. So I'll be here every night at 8 o'clock. You don't have to come every evening. They all get uploaded onto the Facebook page anyway, so you can go back and look at them whenever you want. And they are all different. I'm going to share different stories, a little bit about each chapter, and a little bit about the process of publishing a book, because that's the thing I actually get asked most often. Not what my book's about, which is fine, but like the process, like how do you go about publishing a book? It's really lovely to see you, Susan and Nicola. Oh look, it's all friendly faces. Oh, that's so lovely. I was going to introduce myself, which I really ought to, in case people don't know who I am. So my name's Heidi. I know you guys that have waved know who I am. My name's Heidi. I've got 4 children. None of them have ever been to school, traditional or otherwise. And my eldest is 18, so kind of legally we've been doing this for about 14 years now. They're all very happy, they're all very socialised within their own capabilities, and they're all living beautiful, beautiful lives. You'll be pleased to know. I get asked lots of questions now that they're older about things that they're doing. I'm happy to answer questions as well, if people want to ask stuff. But they're currently 18, 16, 13 and 11, and they're all very different and very busy doing very, very different things, which makes my life very busy because we're all over, like here, there and all over the place, making sure they've all got the things they need to do the things that they want to do. The reason we came to unschooling primarily was what they call philosophical reasons. So loads of families that I work with now, proportionately, most of them have had children in school, and their experience of school has had a negative impact on their child and their family, and that has moved them into a position where they've considered home educating and then unschooling, which is a type of home education. But ours was kind of philosophical. My background is in teaching. I taught for 14 years. My specialism was not child development. It was early years. So I did a lot of training in child development, a lot of training in kind of the neuroscience behind human development and brains, and how children particularly, specifically, learn and develop and grow. And during the course of my experience as a teacher, I became very disillusioned with the education system, as there was and there still is, a huge divide between what we know about children's development and how children are taught in schools, and indeed their whole school experience, in terms of where children thrive. And so when it came to my eldest, considering school, we decided that we would home educate. At the time, I didn't know anyone else that home educated. I didn't know about unschooling, but I did know that my child, up until the point that he was 4 or 5 years old, had learnt bucket loads of stuff, and we hadn't explicitly taught him anything. I also knew from my training and my my own academic pursuits, that children learn through play, that children are fully capable of learning without someone being really explicit about sitting them down and making them do anything. And so we were already of the mindset that we were just going to carry on living our lives like we were. It didn't actually take me very long, like weeks, months, to find other unschooling families in our area. Bearing in mind this was 14 years ago, and the number of home educators then was, still plenty, but not the same numbers that there are today. And it didn't take us long to find other families, and it didn't take us long to find other families that had home educated all the time, like from the beginning. Their children had never been to school, and discovering that unschooling was or is a thing. It's a thing. So that's always what we've done. That's not to say that there weren't things that I wrestled with, and that there weren't things that I was entrenched with schooling, my schooled upbringing, my own teaching in schools. That goes really deep. So there were still lots of things that I personally had to spend time making shifts in. So that's me. That's where we're at. Most of the time I am found booking things for my children, taking them to things, organising play dates. Sleepovers is our new adventure, I guess. So organising sleepovers, going out and about with my kids, or doing craft at home. Well, I was talking to my daughter today about the number of crafts that she's got on the go, and trying to work out which ones maybe we can put to the side for now to make space for working on the new ones. But in 2020, right at the beginning of 2020, I am going to talk a little bit more about that on another evening, but I set up Live, Play, Learn. And as part of that, I support families, and what's grown out of that is this book. Things that I come across often, things that I've experienced, things that other families have experienced in their unschooling journeys, and kind of mapping out that path from leaving school to unschooling. It's not a curriculum, it's not a set journey, but the book really goes through things that come up frequently, and talks about things from an unschooling perspective. I bring in lots of research, because it is like an evidence-based way of educating your children. So there is lots of research out there that supports what families are doing with their children who choose to unschool. And I bring in other families as well. So I've spent time interviewing other families who unschool and bringing in their experiences and perspectives, because it's not a set pathway. So your family experience will be different, and how things work out logistically in different families. I'm a family with 4 children. That's very different to a family who has 1 child. It's very different to a single parent family. The permutations of your family setup, where you live, what you have access to, whether you live in the city or the country, or your what's available to you financially, your support network. There's so many considerations that impact your day-to-day life. So bringing in other families and their experiences, and I was really, really excited and really privileged to interview 2 young people as well who shared their experience, And I think honestly that was the highlight. Having these young people who were just so articulate in their lived experience of school, what the impact that it had had on them, how it impacted them, and then coming out of school and their process of healing, their process of recovery, and how they stepped into unschooling and what they are doing now. And I was so grateful to them for sharing that experience with us. So the book is called, should have probably started with that, School Isn't for Everyone and What You Can Do Instead, which I'm realising every time I type it out is really annoying because it's so long. But it is available to pre-order. I think I've put the pre-order link, I think I pinned it. That's what my intention was, talking about being tech illiterate. So I think there is a pinned message with the link in, and you can pre-order it. I have a digital journal available, so anyone that pre-orders it, if you kind of screenshot your pre-order, I don't need your order number, I don't need everyone's order number, but just screenshot a thing that says, you know, you've ordered successfully, and I will electronically send you this lovely unschooling journal for you to have, and so you can just PM me that, or you can pop it up on, you know, tag me on social media if you're that way inclined and you're able to do that. I was going to say if you're that smarty. I would love to. I'd love to gift you a journal. Excuse me. So I've told you what it's called, and in case you missed it, I did tell you what the whole book is about. It's about journeying from school to unschool, in 12 beautiful chapters. So I'm going to do a chapter a night. So I will start with chapter 1. Chapter 1 starts at the beginning and starts with, do you know what I really find really impressive, just as a side note? People that write books and then remember what they actually wrote in them, because when 60,000 words sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, I can't remember. And you rewrite things so many times, like how do you remember what you kept in and what you edited out? Anyway, the problem I have with chapter 1 is I think I changed the chapter title, but I'm not 100% sure. But it starts at the beginning with school, and it's about when school is a problem, and how we can recognise when our children are telling us that school is difficult for them. Now, some children are able to verbalise those things. They're able to come home and say, I don't like school, I'm being bullied at school, the canteen smells really bad, the teachers never let me go to the toilet. Whatever their experience is, that is negative and damaging to them. Some children are able to verbalise those things. Some children aren't able to verbalise those things. Some children come home exhausted. Some children come home irritable. That could be the same as exhausted. Some children come home and have complete meltdowns. Some children, it's the opposite end of the day, struggling to get them to go into school. Their anxiety is really high. They tell you they've got tummy pains. They won't get out of bed. They won't get dressed. There are all these signs that, for whatever reason, they're unhappy at school, or with school, or going to school, the concept of school. And I talk through some of the signs in the book. But it doesn't just have to be the children that are unhappy with school. It might be the parents' experience of school that causes them to consider alternatives. It might be the disruption to family lifestyle, because your child being at school for 6 hours a day, plus homework, plus after school clubs, has a serious impact on family dynamics and your life, particularly if you have other things that are going on that are really important to you and other considerations. It might be the school approach to relationships, particularly around how they address behaviour, for example. Might be at odds with your family approach and philosophy. There are lots of reasons why school can not be a good fit and be a problem. So, chapter 1, when school is a problem. So, parents, as parents, you might be feeling that. As children, they might be feeling that. And it's kind of giving yourself permission to listen to that information that you're getting. Giving yourself permission to do something about it. To not necessarily just carry on, but to explore what your alternatives are, which is obviously, this book is about unschooling as one of your alternatives. There are lots of alternatives, but so often we in society are blinkered to the alternatives and afraid of those alternatives. So again, this book is about peeling back the curtain on those things and getting a little peek into, I'm going to use the word normalcy of our life, because that's really all we're doing. We're just carrying on living our lives as if school doesn't exist, and that in itself is a beautiful thing, and happily leads to learning and curiosity and interesting things. The book does talk about all the other permutations as well and the challenges, but just knowing that that's even an option is really what chapter 1 is about. I've got my little book down here. This isn't actually the book, by the way, although I did get the cover design the other day, so I might look at sharing that with you. I guess the thing is that school has been part of our society for so long now that generation after generation after generation has been schooled. So it shapes our view about what childhood is, it shapes our view about what education is, and how learning happens or how children should be taught. And so our experience of other ways of learning are very few and far between and can be quite limited. So this chapter also touches on why school exists, why it came to be, how you know that it's not for you or for your child, and then the possibility of doing something else instead. And in the first chapter I share a little bit about my teaching experience, and the things that really led us to unschooling. So it wasn't just my academic background, it was the things that I witnessed in schools. There was one little boy, I mean, I've taught thousands of children, but there was one little boy I remember, and I taught him from reception up until year 4, and he wasn't a reader. He at some point was diagnosed dyslexic, but during that entire time period, so it's 5 years, he was repeatedly taken out of lessons that he loved and activities that he excelled in and had a real passion for, so that he could go and do extra reading classes and reading lessons, which to my memory were not advancing his reading ability at all. And then he was taken out of art, and he was such a talented artist, even like as a child. Like, his pictures were exquisite, and he was taken out of things that he loved doing so that he could go and do something that he hated doing. And during the course of those 5 years, basically witnessed what many parents witness in their children, is just kind of this decline in enthusiasm, life, joy. He just hated being there, and he hated being in school, because he was constantly having to do things that he found intensely difficult. And not only that, but by the time he got to kind of year 4 and year 5, when his peers were reading really well and he was still not able to, going over the same content over and over and over again, it was soul destroying for him, and it was soul destroying to watch and be part of a system that was systematically removing the life from him. I taught another child in year 1 who was an excellent tracker. So he was able to kind of catch, I'm going to say wildlife, like that was what he was able to do. And he was just so good at it. But again, things like academic pursuits like literacy and numeracy, that wasn't his strong point, it wasn't his forte. But when we were outside playing games, if we were playing it, or any, like kind of rugby type games in year 1, which is not a full-on rugby game, people, but anything where you had to catch another player, he, like all the other children, notably would literally en masse follow the one child they were supposed to be catching. And they would en masse just follow him round, like they were just following the trail that this child who they were trying to catch was leaving. And then this child who was really good at tracking and catching wildlife would peel off from the pack and be able to kind of see the trajectory of the person they were trying to catch and peel off and kind of intervene and catch them. And it was a really interesting, I remember being really interested and fascinated, like watching where everybody else and what everybody else was doing at that stage in their development, but actually what he was able to do. And that was a beautiful thing, but there wasn't anywhere for that to be nurtured. In fact, again, because he wasn't great at the academics, most of his time was spent in extra classes around literacy and numeracy. Anyway, so it's just a couple of stories from my experience. I have plenty more. I guess I didn't want this to be longer than half an hour, so I'm going to wrap up. I guess that if I was going to take away one thing from kind of like this idea about school and school being a problem and what school was really intended for and why it exists and how it has developed since its early connotations, I think it would be pressing upon people how much we are influenced by our schooled experience and how entrenched we are as a society in schooling and what teaching and learning should look like, and the idea of what children need in order to be able to learn, being so completely wrapped up in our own experiences and the societal approach to our children learn in, which is effectively school and all school type things, and to really encourage people to look beyond that and to think about, this is kind of where we're going on with the rest of the book, to think about how we can tailor what we do to our children. I mean, one of the things about unschooling, one of the easiest things to understand about unschooling is that it's not school. If you are looking at taking an approach to education that is as far removed from school as possible, this is probably it. And if you are tempted in your home education setup to do anything that looks or feels schooly, anything, I'd really question whether it's needed, because I can tell you it's not needed. Children are fully capable of learning without doing anything that looks like school. It's one of the most natural things in the world to do, to learn, and arguably probably a strong point, and on arguably school is very good at squashing that ability to learn, and reducing children's natural curiosity, which arguably is the purpose of school. And if it's not the purpose of school, it is definitely one of the consequences of schooling. So if you're looking to nurture your child's natural curiosity and to bring more joy, better well-being, mental and physical well-being into their lives, then unschooling is definitely worth you pursuing. And so I hope you'll join me again tomorrow. I'd love to tell you what chapter 2 is about. I really ought to know. Oh, it's the neurodiversity chapter. So specifically talking about the impact of schooling on children who are neurodivergent, the impact that it has on them, and why unschooling is absolutely the most amazing best fit for those children who don't fit the mould and want to do something a little bit different, in a different way. I'm here to tell you that that's okay, and they will be okay, and you will be okay. And I think that's the chapter where these two young people share their experiences, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that tomorrow as well. So that will be 8 o'clock. Thank you for coming and listening to me talk about the book. Yeah, I should have thought about sharing the front cover with you tonight, because that only came in an email a couple of days ago. I'll try and do that tomorrow evening, because that's one of the more exciting parts of the publishing process. The completion of the front cover, and I'll share a little bit more about other aspects of publishing with you as the days go on. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for coming. Have a nice evening. Are you curious about unschooling and want to know more? Perhaps you're on the edge of starting this adventure, or maybe you've been doing this a while, but you're looking for inspiration. After more than 13 years of unschooling 4 children and over 5 years supporting others on the same path, I have a vast library of resources that I'm happy to share with you for free, whatever stage of your journey you're in. You can check out the link in the description of the podcast, or you can head over to my website at liveplaylearn.org and look for the free resources tab. And there you will find lots of things to inspire you to keep living, learning and playing together. I said that the wrong way round, didn't I? Anyway, it's also a great way to make sure that you don't miss an episode of the podcast, which we will get back to now.